Hi, I'm Peter J. Shield. Welcome to my world of unexplained mysteries, Vegas style. Most of the time on this program we devote our attention to mysteries well beyond our shores. Many of the unexplained and unsolved crimes and mysteries that abound in our society today. I thought it would be a very pleasant change to come back home to the real world that exists in our immediate vicinity of Las Vegas. The focus, of course, has been on Las Vegas since the introduction of the CSI program, and in particular on the area of expertise that my special guest today has. Today we're going to look at some very real mysteries that exist right here in Las Vegas, and I'm privileged and very proud to introduce you to our special guest today, the Clark County Coroner, Mr. Mike Murphy. Mike, thank you so much for coming in today.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Real pleasure. I really want to congratulate you and your department on the exciting new project that has recently only just gone to air, of course, your own special website focusing on some of the unidentified and mysterious deceased that exist in our community today. Where did that concept come about?
Well, Ron Flood, who was the coroner in Clark County for the last 19 years, just retired in May. As I came on board during our transition period, we talked about the ways that we could run our office more efficiently and utilize the technology that was available to us to solve unsolved cases. And as we began to brainstorm on that project, we recognized very quickly that the internet and the World Wide Web would be a good way to do that. As that began to unfold, we were just in the beginning stages of utilizing digital technology for our photograph work with the forensic staff. Combining those two issues basically brought us to the conclusion that we could take photographs of unidentified remains, digitize them, in effect clean the photo so that it was an appropriate photo for the public to look at, and then place it onto a website, and then use those appropriately viewable photos and ask the public, do you know who this individual is? And we thought that there was no better way to reach the public in this day and age than through the computer.
Absolutely.
So as a result of that, we began the project. Ron retired the end of May, and we rolled the project out in full force November 1st of this year.
Wow. One of the interesting things, viewers, that you will notice is that on the right-hand side of our screen right now, you have a hot link, a means whereby you can just click directly and go to the images and the information that Mike and I are going to be discussing on our program today here on VegasWebcast.com. Similarly, we're relatively new in the industry, and we're new in the sense that we're bringing live television from Las Vegas to the world, and I felt that this would be an ideal medium, particularly for we have so many of our guests that come to Las Vegas, and those, of course, who end their lives here in Las Vegas, who may be from parts as far away as anywhere in the world, I guess. So it seemed a natural family uniting what you're doing with what we're doing and bringing these images to a much wider market. We're going to take a look at a number of specific cases today. We're going to discuss with Mike some of these images. If you are somewhat sensitive, be warned that we're going to be offering you some graphic images, but as Mike has quite correctly pointed out, they've been very careful in editing and retouching so as to cause the minimum amount of offense to any of you who might be watching, and particularly, of course, if you happen to recognize the image and the face that you're looking at on our screen today. Let's start off by looking at Sahara Sue.
Sure.
One of the cases that Mike's recently had to deal with, but it goes back to 1979, I believe. Mike.
That's correct. What I'd like for you to know about the cases in general that are on the web is that there were, when we opened the site, there were 138 unsolved cases that were either John or Jane Does, which is the way we refer to them. Sahara Sue, by the way, means that she was, most cases are named by the fact that it's a male, and then it's John Doe, and the female Jane Doe, and then a location where they were found.
Right.
Sahara Sue dates back to 1979. She's one of our 138 cases that are unsolved. She was found on August 14th of 1979 at 8:30 in the evening by a passing pedestrian walking through the parking lot of what at that time was the old El Rancho parking lot, which was across the street from the Sahara Hotel, hence the Sahara suit doe. She was observed as a partially disrobed female lying face down in a parking lot. The decedent had no identification on her person in any way, shape, or form. Her clothing was unique, and there are some photos when you go to the website, on our website that's linked through yours, you will see that there's some jewelry and at that time clothing that would be somewhat unique in reference to the, some of her garb, and you can look at that. She was found that it was a homicide due to multiple stab wounds, and fingerprints were taken. There was no match. An extra note might be that she did not have any teeth. She did have an upper denture, but the lower denture was missing. And she's believed to be between 17 and 21 years of age, and is a Caucasian female, 5'6", with 103 pounds.
Mike, in a case like this, where you've got a Jane Doe, or a John Doe for that matter, what is the first source that you look for? Is it fingerprints? Is it dental work? Where do you go first to try
One of the
to
first,
identify?
that's an excellent question. One of the first things we do is try to go with a facially recognizable photo and show it in the area and see if we can find something that matches that. Our next step is always to go to fingerprints if they're available. Sometimes the fingers are missing, or the hand is missing, or in the case of a body being severely decomposed, raising a fingerprint is very, very difficult. As the technology has gotten better in our industry, of course, we are able to do a lot more with fingerprints than we could back in 1979. We now also capture, before we release any body for burial, is we capture full dental records. In this particular instance, we have dentures. We will do full x-rays of the body because we can actually do ante-mortem x-rays prior to death and post-mortem and do a comparison. And of any broken bones or special issues with the bones. We have an anthropologist look at the body, and then we will also capture now DNA.
Because if we believe some of the television programs that we watch nightly, it's a very simple matter, and nobody could ever be unidentified for any length of time.
You would think.
Yes, exactly so. But in the real world, of course, obviously it's very much different.
It is different, and the database that's out there right now, the largest single database for doing what I would refer to as a blind search or an unknown search, is still fingerprints.
It is.
That is certainly the largest database. When I do public tours, I ask a group of 40 people to hold their hands up, how many people know you have fingerprints on file? Virtually 99% of those people in the room will say, yes, I have fingerprints on file. If you ask how many have DNA, you might get 1 or 2 out of 40 or 50 people. And so, while the DNA base is there, unfortunately, it is not built to the level that we needed to at this point.
Do we have any specific figures for the number of people that in the United States, for example, or as a percentage, actually have had their fingerprints recorded at some stage?
I don't have those accurate figures, but I can tell you that I would venture to say that we're probably looking at somewhere to 80 to 90% of the individuals that are in America certainly have at one point or another had their fingerprints taken. And as we see more background checks as a result of individuals that have to deal with school-age children, different security issues for jobs, yes, gaming, of course, and in Nevada, we see that if you're in the gaming industry, you have had a set of fingerprints taken.
Well, we're going to take a little break right about now. We'll be back very shortly with our special guest, Michael Murphy. Welcome back. My special guest, Mike Murphy from the Clark County Coroner's Office. And we're discussing some of the unidentified bodies that are within the files of the Clark County Coroner's Office. Mike, the one we're about to look at is absolutely fascinating. It's a relatively recent case, I believe.
It is.
How do we describe this one? What's he known as?
Well, this one is referred to as John 8th Street Doe.
8th Street.
8th Street. He was found on 8th Street. This was on July 21st of this year. It is believed to have been a homicide. And what's unique about this particular case is that it was discovered by an individual who thought that they saw something protruding from the ground, and what was protruding was what appeared to be part of an individual's hand. So the individual was buried, the decedent was buried in a shallow grave. As a result of police response, he was unearthed. and the body was recovered, and we began the process of identification.
How long ago? I'm sorry.
This was July 21st of this year.
This year.
That's correct.
Now, when we say 8th Street, are we talking about a residential area?
Yes, it was a residential area in the downtown area of Las Vegas.
Okay, and this would have been sort of on the side of the road, as it were.
It was actually in someone's yard.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, my God. All right, let's take a look at the body. Absolutely fascinating because it's covered in tattoos.
That's correct. What you're looking at right now is a picture of the individual's back. What becomes very difficult for us, and I think for your viewers, when we're looking at something like this, is that this is a very complicated piece of art. But what we have already done, compared to the picture that they see on the left and the picture on the right, which are the same picture, but what we have done digitally is clean the epidermis or the skin area with a digital camera. Literally digitally painting the skin so that what you see is the tattoo itself versus looking at the discoloration of the skin.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is clean it up so that you can better see the art. And if you look, it appears to be a female that is laying sideways, and you can see her head and some of the
One of the things you mentioned to me there, Mike, was the fact that tattooing as an item on a body is relatively long life. It doesn't fade
Absolutely.
away that quickly.
Tattooing will stay for a long period of time. The ink goes into the dermis, which is the second layer of skin, and stays in pretty good shape even during the decomposition process, as you can see in this particular instance. And then what we've tried to do is to enhance it so that you're actually looking at the tattoo or the picture.
Right.
And there is some question whether these were done in a tattoo parlor or whether these are more street type tattoos. But because of the intricacy of the art itself, we believe that someone out there certainly knows that this work was done because it took a long time to do.
Let's look at another close-up of what are we looking at here?
What
Mike?
you're looking at now is part of the side of the body, and it is a skull that's laid down with kind of a forked tongue coming out, and that's the larger picture. And then the picture to the right of that is what we did to digitally enhance the tattoo itself, and to create the picture so that you're literally now just looking at the tattoo, and kind of through a photographic process removed it from the body and made it just a picture. And we felt like this was one of the most recognizable tattoos on the decedent's
What
body.
is that image? That's that skull again?
Yes, that's the skull that's on the right. It appears to be a skull with kind of a top
there
knot.
it is,
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
With a top knot hair piece coming out,
Right.
and then you have the very unique eyes and the tongue or the fire coming out, and then the kind of goateed chin.
Have
And
you
so
had a chance to talk to any tattoo artists about the actual images?
It
I'm
is
sure
my
that-
understanding that investigators have talked with several artists about this, and no one has identified that as their art yet. But again, this is another reason why we're putting this out on the web, so that hopefully someone can recognize it.
Did tattoo artists, as a general rule, sign their work today like conventional artists?
You know, I have to tell you, I'm not that familiar with it, and I don't know that they do, but I have not normally seen signatures on the tattoos that we see.
Right. That might be something well worth their while considering.
It might be. It would certainly be a way for us to go back and see who's who.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I really want to say a sincere thank you, Mike. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here today. It's been most enlightening. I'm going to invite Mike to join me on my special guest on our channel here, so that we can find out a little bit more about the coroner's office and the relationship between the images we see on programs like CSI and the real world. So on behalf of my guest Mike Murphy from the coroner's office, I'm Peter J. Shield. Thanks for watching. Welcome back. My special guest, the Clark County Coroner, Mike Murphy, and we're discussing some of the unidentified victims that lie within the files of the Clark County Coroner's Office. Mike, we were talking earlier about the advantage of being able to go worldwide through the web, and you made the point, and I think a very relevant one, of the fact that Vegas is an international town.
Absolutely. It is an international town, and as a result of that, we are the playground of the world, so to speak, and people come here to enjoy themselves, and we want them to do that. But because we have that international flavor, there's no doubt in my mind that some of the decedents that we have not been able to identify have come from all parts of the world. And so it makes logical sense to us that we use the web that has the ability to reach everywhere as a medium so that we can identify people.
One other point that I just want to touch on, I think it's important too, to highlight is the fact that even though we're showing a number of unidentified victims here, I wouldn't want our viewers, either here or worldwide, to get the impression that we're notorious for deceased. In terms of numbers, how do we stand nationally? Do you have any figures?
Well, I can tell you that last year, first of all, I think people don't realize that Clark County is the county that Las Vegas is in.
Right.
There is 8,000 square miles in Clark County. It's one of the largest counties in the United States. We respond to that whole area. Last year in Clark County, there were 12,500 deaths, and 8,000 of those required some response by the coroner's office. But when you pare that down to our number of unidentified remains, this office has been able to, within 24 hours, identify and notify next of kin and have that body ready for release to family so that they can begin the closure. And I think that's the thing we need to remember. Our goal here is to reunite families with their lost loved ones, and that every one of these people is someone's brother, sister, mother, aunt, uncle, child.
Right.
And to get down to those numbers, we only have, and I feel fortunate to say, 138 unidentified remains since 1969.
Wow.
That we are still working on those cases. So when you look at the number of deaths, and our death numbers are not any higher than anywhere else in the world,
right.
When you look at those numbers, I think that we've been able to do a good job, and this is just a way to go one step further. One other item that I might mention to you is the web has been up now. The page has been up since November 1st, and of those 138, we have already identified 7 additional. So we're now down to about 131.
Outstanding. Let's look at our next case. Jane Doe.
Jane Doe. This is Jane Arroyo Grande Doe.
Now, how do we name them?
They're named by a location or close to the location where they're found.
Okay.
And she was found in Arroyo Grande Wash in Henderson, Nevada. She was observed as a nude female lying face down in the desert on October 5th of 1980 at approximately 9 p.m. The decedent had no identification on her person, and there was no clothing found in the area. The decedent was the victim of a homicide due to blunt force trauma to the head and multiple stab wounds to the neck. What you're seeing here on screen is a digitized, retouched photo of Jane Arroyo Grande Doe. Fingerprints were taken and submitted. There were no matches. The fingerprints were also maintained in the file, and dental x-rays, partial x-rays were done showing restoration, and they're available. She did have a tattoo of the letter S on her right forearm. She's described as 5'2", 103 pounds, between 14 and 20 years of age.
Yeah, quite a good-looking girl.
And certainly somebody is missing this young lady.
Well, you would think so, and that's one of the amazing things about the work that you do and the department that you have. You would think that there would be more people looking for more people.
Well, and our thought here is that there is certainly someone out there looking. Now what we have to do is match up that person that's looking for them and our decedent.
And as you quite rightly point out, that could be from literally anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
So that woman could have jumped on a plane and landed in Las Vegas from anywhere. So
that's correct.
Without any of her relatives knowing that she was actually here in Las Vegas. Let's go to our next deceased.
Sure. This is a Caucasian male. This John Doe was found on September 30th of this year, lying in the Las Vegas Wash. Therefore, this is John Las Vegas Wash Doe, near the Lake Mead area, barely alive. The decedent was taken to UMC Trauma here in Las Vegas, where he received treatment, but ultimately expired as a result of his injuries, had no identification on his person, and never regained consciousness. As you can see, he's approximately 74 inches in height, 200 pounds, brown hair, gray eyes, and he had, as you can see, has somewhat of a pronounced overbite. Right. And so that's some of his identifying characteristics, and we are, of course, looking for any information in reference to this case.
Okay, and let me remind you that you can click on the hot button to the right of our screen right now to go to the website, and you can contact Mike or any of his staff here in Las Vegas simply by clicking on that link and emailing us, or alternatively, of course, the phone number's available on the site. My producer's given me a signal. Have we got a bit of time, a bit more time? Do we have time to go to the next case? I think probably we do. Let's go to Gibson. Is it?
Yes, this is Jane Gibson Mine Doe.
Right.
And we have only a very small photograph here, and that's of a birthmark on the back. The reason for this is this was a dismembered body. There is no head, arms, or legs. And the decedent appeared to be that of a white female who had been dismembered and dumped in the desert alongside of highway route number 159. Preliminary investigation revealed the partial remains were discovered by 2 motorcycle riders who were passing by on 3/6 of this year. Due to the odd visible nature of the object down the embankment, they went down to see what it was, investigating, found the nude torso. As you can see, we have very, very little information on this case, and only a birthmark on the back of the decedent. And anyone that would have any information or is missing someone that would match that Caucasian female, appears to be a younger woman, maybe 30 or less, then of course we would ask that they contact us.
Right. And I would point out to our viewers that there were much more graphic photographs available, but the decision was made by the coroner's office that these were not suitable for publication at this time, but would be available, of course, to anyone who believed they could play a role in identifying.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to take one more quick break, and then we'll be back to look at one of the most fascinating cases that have come to light this year.